The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning in September of 1878, and Ophelia Foster knew, before opening it, that her life as she understood it was about to end. She stood in the small parlor of her aunt's boarding house in Fort Bowie, Arizona Territory, holding the thin paper with trembling fingers. The words blurred together at first, then sharpened into brutal clarity. Her father was dead. Cholera had swept through their ranch outside of town, taking him within 3 days. Her mother had followed 2 days later. The property, mortgaged to the hilt, would be seized unless the debts were paid within 30 days. Her younger brother Thomas, just 16, was staying with neighbors but couldn't manage alone. Ophelia was 21 years old, a schoolteacher who barely earned enough to pay for her room and meals. The sum needed to save the ranch might as well have been the distance to the moon. "There is a solution," her Aunt Miriam said quietly from the doorway. The older woman's face was drawn with sympathy, but also with the hard practicality of frontier life. "Harold Sutton has made his interest in you quite clear. He's a wealthy man, Ophelia. He could settle your father's debts without blinking." Ophelia's stomach turned. Harold Sutton owned the general store and half the buildings in Fort Bowie. He was 43, with thin lips and calculating eyes that made her skin crawl. He had been courting her with the persistence of a man who believed everything had a price, including people. "I can't," Ophelia whispered. "You may have to," Miriam said, not unkindly. "For Thomas, if not for yourself. What will happen to the boy if the ranch is lost? Who will take him in?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Ophelia felt the walls of her small world closing in, suffocating her. Marriage to Harold Sutton would mean security, certainly. It would mean saving her childhood home and providing for her brother. It would also mean becoming Mrs. Sutton, mistress of his large house, hostess at his tedious dinners, ornament to his ambitions. She would disappear into his shadow, become an extension of his will. The thought made her want to run into the desert and never stop. But what choice did she have? That afternoon, she walked through Fort Bowie in a daze. The town was a rough collection of adobe buildings and wooden structures clustered around the military fort that gave it its name. Soldiers in dusty blue uniforms mingled with ranchers, prospectors, and the occasional Apache who came to trade. The September heat was relentless, pressing down like a hot iron. She found herself at the small cemetery on the edge of town without quite meaning to go there. Her parents had been buried that morning, before she even knew they were sick. She stood before the fresh graves, dirt still dark and loose, and felt rage rise in her chest alongside the grief. They had worked so hard, her parents. Her father had carved that ranch from nothing, breaking his back to make the land yield something. Her mother had kept them fed and clothed through droughts and Apache raids and the grinding isolation of frontier life. And for what? To die young and leave debts behind. "I'm sorry, miss. I didn't mean to intrude." Ophelia turned to find a man standing a respectful distance away, hat in his hands. He was tall and lean, probably in his mid-20s, with brown hair sun-bleached lighter at the ends and eyes the color of creek water after rain. Dust covered his clothes and boots. A working man, she could tell. A ranch hand or cowboy from the look of him. "You're not intruding," she said, her voice rough. "Were you a friend of my parents?" "I worked for your father last spring," the man said. "Just for a few weeks during calving season. He was a good man, fair. I heard about what happened. I'm real sorry." "Thank you," Ophelia said mechanically. She had heard those words so many times in the past few hours that they had lost all meaning. The man shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable but not leaving. "My name is Austin Miller. I'm foreman at the Double R Ranch now, about 15 miles north. Your father, he talked about you." Said you were teaching school, that you were smart as a whip. He was proud of you. Something in Ophelia's chest cracked at that. Her father had been a man of few words, especially when it came to affection. Hearing that he had spoken well of her to strangers undid her carefully maintained composure. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. Austin Miller moved closer, his weathered face creased with concern. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. I just thought you should know he was proud. A man like that, sometimes he don't say it to the people who need to hear it most." Ophelia wiped at her face with shaking hands. "No, I'm glad you told me. I just wish he had told me himself. I wish I had been here. I was in town, teaching, while they died alone out there." "They weren't alone," Austin said gently. "I heard the Hendersons were with them at the end, and you couldn't have known, miss. Nobody could. Cholera moves fast." They stood in silence for a moment. A hot wind blew across the cemetery, rattling the dry grass and kicking up little devils of dust. In the distance, a bugle sounded from the fort, marking the change of guard. "I heard Sutton is making noises about the ranch," Austin said carefully, "that he holds the mortgage." "He does," Ophelia said bitterly, "and he's made it clear what he expects in return for clearing the debt." Austin's jaw tightened. "Marriage." "Yes." The word tasted like ash in her mouth. "You don't have to do that," Austin said. "There are other ways." "Are there?" Ophelia turned to face him fully, desperation making her bold. "Please, enlighten me. Because from where I'm standing, I can either marry Harold Sutton and keep the ranch for my brother, or refuse him and watch Thomas lose everything our parents built. Those seem to be my only choices." Austin was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then he said something she never expected. "You could marry me instead." Ophelia stared at him. "What? Marry me?" Austin repeated, his voice steady despite the wild proposition. "I've got some money saved. Not enough to pay off the whole debt, but enough to make a good dent. And I make decent wages as foreman. We could work out a payment plan with Sutton or find another lender. You wouldn't have to marry him." "You don't even know me," Ophelia said, stunned. "I know you're a good woman in a bad situation," Austin said. "And I know Harold Sutton is a snake who's been trying to get his hands on that ranch for years. This is just his excuse. He doesn't want a wife, miss. He wants your land and someone to cook his meals and warm his bed. At least with me, you'd be marrying an honest man who wouldn't expect you to disappear into his shadow." "And what would you expect?" Ophelia asked, her heart pounding. Austin put his hat back on, squinting against the sun. "Honestly, I don't rightly know. I never thought much about marriage before, but I reckon it should be a partnership. Two people working together, not one person owning the other. Your father, when I worked for him, he talked about your mother like she was his equal, like they built that ranch together. That's what marriage should be, seems to me." Ophelia felt dizzy. This strange man was offering her a way out, but was it any less a trap than Sutton's proposal? She would still be married to someone she didn't know, still be bound by law and custom to a man's will. And yet something in Austin Miller's earnest face, in the straightforward way he spoke, made her want to trust him. "I need to think," she said. "Of course," Austin said. "I'm staying at the boarding house by the fort, Mrs. Chen's place. You can send word there if you decide you want to talk more. But miss, if you're going to do this, you should decide soon. Sutton isn't going to wait long." He tipped his hat to her and walked away, his long stride carrying him quickly out of the cemetery. Ophelia watched him go, her mind churning. Was he serious? Would he really marry a stranger just to help her? What did he gain from this? That evening, she sat with her aunt in the parlor and told her about Austin's offer. Miriam's face went through several expressions before settling on skeptical hope. "I know the Miller boy," she said, "or I know of him. He came to the territory about 3 years ago from Texas. He's got a reputation as a hard worker, good with horses and cattle, keeps to himself mostly, doesn't drink or gamble much. Decent man from what I hear. But why would he offer to marry me? Ophelia asked. What does he want? Miriam sighed. Maybe he's just what he seems, a decent man trying to help. Or maybe he wants a wife and figures this is as good a way as any to get one. Most men out here don't have the luxury of long courtships, dear. They need help running a household, raising children if they come. It's practical if not romantic. There's nothing romantic about any of this, Ophelia said quietly. No, Miriam agreed. But at least with young Miller, you'd be marrying someone close to your own age, someone who seems to have some decent ideas about what marriage should be. And if it doesn't work, well, at least you tried something other than selling yourself to Sutton like a head of cattle. The words were harsh, but they crystallized something in Ophelia's mind. If she was going to have to marry to save the ranch, she would rather gamble on a young cowboy with kind eyes than chain herself to Harold Sutton for certain misery. The next morning, she sent word to Austin Miller that she wanted to talk. They met at the small cafe near the fort, sitting at a corner table while the breakfast crowd thinned out around them. In the daylight, Ophelia could see Austin more clearly. He had a scar on his chin and calluses on his hands. His eyes were steady and honest. He looked at her like she was a person, not a possession. I've been thinking about your offer, Ophelia said without preamble. I need to understand what you would expect from this marriage. Austin leaned back in his chair, considering. Fair question. I expect honesty between us. I expect we'd live at your family ranch, since that's what we're trying to save. I'd keep working as foreman at the Double R until we get the place running properly again. I know cattle and horses well enough. We could make it work, I think. And what about the rest of it? Ophelia asked, feeling her cheeks warm. The personal aspects of marriage. Austin's ears reddened slightly, but he met her eyes. I won't force anything on you if that's what you're asking. We take things as they come. Get to know each other first. I'm not looking to trap you, Miss Foster. I'm trying to help you find a way out of being trapped by Sutton. Why? Ophelia pressed. You still haven't explained why you care. Austin was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee. My mother was in a situation like yours once, he said finally. When I was a boy, my father died. We had debts. A man offered to marry her, said he'd take care of everything. She accepted because she thought she had to, for me and my sister. That man made her life hell for 10 years before he drank himself to death. I watched my mother disappear a little more each day, watched her become a ghost in her own house. I swore if I ever had the chance to help a woman avoid that fate, I would. So here we are. The raw honesty in his voice pierced through Ophelia's defenses. She saw the pain in his eyes, the old anger at his helplessness as a child. This wasn't just charity or some scheme. This was personal for him. If I agree, she said slowly, I need you to understand something. I don't want to lose myself in this marriage. I've watched too many women disappear into their husbands' lives, become nothing but wives and mothers with no thoughts or dreams of their own. I want to keep teaching if I can. I want to have opinions and be heard. I want to matter. Austin's face softened. Then we'll make sure you matter. Teaching is good, important work, and a ranch needs 2 heads to think, not just one. I meant what I said about partnership, Miss Foster. I'm not looking for a servant or a decoration. I'm looking for someone to build a life with side by side. Ophelia felt something loosen in her chest, just a little. You really mean that? I do, Austin said simply. She took a deep breath. This was insane. She was about to agree to marry a man she had met yesterday. But the alternative was Harold Sutton, and at least Austin Miller seemed to see her as a human being rather than a prize to be won. All right, she said. I'll marry you. Austin's face broke into a smile, the first real smile she had seen from him. It transformed his whole face, made him look younger and less worn down by the world. "You won't regret this," he said. "I promise I'll do my best by you." "I'll hold you to that," Ophelia said, and felt the ghost of an answering smile on her own lips. They were married 3 days later by the post-chaplain at Fort Bowie. Ophelia wore her Sunday dress, dark blue with a white collar. Austin wore clean clothes and a string tie, his hair slicked back with water. Her aunt and brother attended, along with a few of Austin's friends from the Double R Ranch. It was a brief ceremony, solemn and strange. When the chaplain pronounced them husband and wife, Austin kissed her cheek gently, respectfully. His lips were warm and soft, his hand steady on her elbow. Harold Sutton had come to the ceremony uninvited, standing at the back with his arms crossed and fury in his eyes. When it was done, he approached them on the steps of the chapel. "This won't save the ranch," he said coldly. "The debt is still due in 3 weeks. I'll be happy to foreclose on the property when your cowboy husband can't pay." "About that," Austin said calmly. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. "I've arranged a new loan through the bank in Tucson. They've agreed to buy out your mortgage at face value. You'll have your money within the week and we'll owe the bank instead of you. Our business is concluded, Sutton." The banker's face went purple with rage. "You'll regret crossing me, Miller." "I don't think I will," Austin said mildly. "Come on, Ophelia, let's go home." He offered her his arm and she took it, feeling a fierce rush of gratitude and something else she couldn't quite name. They walked away from Sutton's impotent fury, away from the chapel, toward the wagon Austin had borrowed for the occasion. Thomas ran ahead, whooping with relief and joy that they were going home. Aunt Miriam dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. The ride to the ranch took an hour along dusty roads. Ophelia sat beside Austin on the wagon seat, very aware of his presence beside her. He was her husband now. The thought was surreal. Yesterday he had been a stranger. Now they were bound together by law and vows for better or worse. The ranch, when they arrived, looked forlorn. The house needed repairs and paint. The barn sagged on one side. Weeds had overtaken the vegetable garden her mother had tended so carefully. It would take work to bring it back to life. But it was home, and it was still theirs. Austin helped her down from the wagon with careful hands. "I know it needs work," he said, "but we'll get it sorted out. One day at a time." That first night was awkward. They moved around each other like dancers learning a new routine, careful not to step on toes. Austin carried his few belongings into the house and stood uncertainly in the main room while Ophelia directed Thomas to the bedroom he had always shared with their parents. She would clean out their things later, when she was strong enough to face it. "I'll take the small room," Austin said, gesturing to the tiny space off the kitchen that had been used for storage. "Give you some privacy." Ophelia felt relief war with something else, some complex emotion she couldn't quite parse. "Are you sure? That room barely fits a bed." "I've slept in worse places," Austin said. "Besides, this is your home. I don't want you to feel like I'm invading it." That night, Ophelia lay in her childhood bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of another adult in the house. Austin moved quietly, but she could hear the creak of floorboards, the soft sounds of him settling into the small room. She was married. She had a husband. The reality of it pressed down on her like a physical weight. But at least it was a weight she had chosen, or as close to choice as the situation allowed. The next morning, Austin was up before dawn. Ophelia woke to the smell of coffee and found him in the kitchen, frying eggs and bacon. He looked up when she entered, offering a tentative smile. "Morning. Hope you don't mind me cooking. Force of habit from ranch life." I don't mind, Ophelia said, surprised. Most men she knew wouldn't be caught dead cooking. Thank you. They ate breakfast together, making stilted conversation about the work that needed doing around the ranch. Thomas joined them, still half asleep but clearly thrilled to have another man in the house. He peppered Austin with questions about ranching, horses, cattle drives. Austin answered patiently, his natural reserve thawing in the face of the boy's enthusiasm. After breakfast, Austin went out to assess the livestock and outbuildings. Ophelia cleaned the kitchen and tried to figure out what her life was supposed to look like now. She was a married woman, a rancher's wife. But she was also still herself, still Ophelia Foster who loved books and teaching and wanted more from life than just surviving. Austin had promised her that marriage wouldn't mean losing herself, but how could she hold on to who she was when everything had changed so completely? That afternoon she found Austin in the barn making a list of repairs needed. He looked up when she approached, squinting against the sun coming through the open door. "The roof needs work," he said, "and several of the stalls need new boards, but it's not as bad as it looks. We can fix it." "Austin," Ophelia said and paused, not sure how to continue, "I need to talk to you about something." His expression turned cautious. "All right, the school, my teaching position. The term starts in 2 weeks. I want to keep doing it, at least for now. I know you said I could, but I need to know you meant it, that you won't change your mind once you've had time to think about it." Austin set down his pencil and gave her his full attention. "I meant it, Ophelia. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't do. If teaching is important to you, then it's important. We'll figure out how to make it work. It will mean I'm away during the day," Ophelia said. "It will mean you'll have to manage more of the ranch work alone, at least until we can hire help." "I know," Austin said. "But I've got time before I need to be back at the Double R each day. I can handle the morning work here, then head over there for the afternoon. We'll make it work," he repeated. Relief flooded through Ophelia. "Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me." "I think I do," Austin said quietly. "You're trying to hold on to who you are in the middle of all this change. That makes sense to me. I'd want the same thing." Something shifted between them in that moment. Ophelia felt herself truly looking at her husband for the first time, seeing past her own fear and uncertainty to the man underneath. He was trying, she realized, really trying to make this strange arrangement work for both of them. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure. Are you lonely? Is that part of why you agreed to this? Because you wanted a wife?" Austin considered the question seriously. "Maybe," he admitted. "Ranch work can be isolating. Most of my friends are married now with families. I guess I figured it was time I thought about that for myself. But I wouldn't have proposed to just anyone, Ophelia. There was something about you standing there in the cemetery. You looked like you were drowning but still fighting. I admired that. I wanted to help, yes, but I also just wanted to know you better. Does that make sense?" "Yes," Ophelia said softly. "That makes sense." They worked together that afternoon, clearing out the barn and making repairs where they could. Austin was patient, showing her how to replace boards and secure nails properly. He didn't condescend or treat her like she was fragile. When she struggled with something, he offered help rather than taking over. It was a small thing, but it mattered. She felt less like a burden and more like a partner. That evening, after Thomas went to bed, they sat on the porch together as the sun set. The desert sky turned gold and orange and deep purple, stars beginning to prick through the gathering darkness. Austin smoked a cigarette and Ophelia drank tea, and they talked. "Tell me about Texas," Ophelia said. "Why did you leave?" Austin was quiet for a moment, smoke curling up from his cigarette. "My mother died when I was 19. Cholera, same as your parents. My sister had already married and moved to California. There was nothing left for me there, just bad memories. I heard they needed ranch hands out here in the territory, that there was opportunity. So I came west and never looked back. Do you miss it? Sometimes, Austin admitted. I miss the open grasslands, the way thunderstorms would roll across the plains, but Arizona has its own beauty. Different but good. I've never been anywhere else, Ophelia said. I was born at this ranch. The furthest I've ever traveled is Fort Bowie. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to see the ocean or a big city like San Francisco. Maybe someday you will, Austin said. Life is long, Ophelia. There's time for all sorts of things. Is there? Ophelia said, her voice turning bitter. Most women I know never leave their towns. They're born, they marry, they have children, they die, all within a 20-mile radius. Is that what my life will be? Austin stubbed out his cigarette and turned to look at her. Not if you don't want it to be. Listen, I know I can't promise you the moon and stars. I'm just a ranch foreman, not a rich man, but I can promise that I won't try to trap you. If you want to see the ocean someday, we'll figure out how to make it happen. If you want to keep teaching or try something new or whatever else calls to your heart, I'll support it. That's what I meant about marriage being a partnership. We help each other chase our dreams, not give them up. Ophelia felt tears prick her eyes. How can you say that? You barely know me. What if my dreams conflict with yours? Then we'll talk about it like adults and find a compromise, Austin said simply. That's what people do when they care about each other. They work things out. But we don't care about each other, Ophelia said. Not yet. We're strangers who got married out of necessity. Austin smiled slightly. We don't have to stay strangers. That's the whole point, Ophelia. We find each other daily. We wake up every morning and choose to learn more about the person we're sharing our life with. Marriage doesn't mean you disappear. It means we show up for each other every day and build something together. At least, that's what I believe it should mean. Ophelia wiped at her eyes, frustrated by her own tears. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is simple, Austin said. Maybe we just make it complicated by thinking too much. How about this? Let's make a deal. For the next month, we focus on becoming friends. No pressure about anything else. We just get to know each other, work on the ranch, figure out if we can actually stand each other's company. If at the end of that month you feel like this was a terrible mistake, we'll figure something out. I won't hold you prisoner in a marriage you hate. But I think if we give this a real chance, it might turn out better than either of us expects. Ophelia looked at him in the gathering darkness. His face was earnest, hopeful without being naive. He was offering her grace, time, and respect. It was more than she had expected and more than most women in her position ever received. All right, she said. 1 month. We'll try to be friends first. Austin held out his hand and she shook it, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. Friends, he agreed. Over the following weeks, they fell into a routine that was surprisingly comfortable. Austin would wake early and tend to the livestock, making coffee before Ophelia rose. They would eat breakfast together, often with Thomas chattering between bites. Then Ophelia would ride into Fort Bowie for her teaching duties while Austin worked the ranch in the morning and headed to the Double R for the afternoon shift. They would reunite at dinner, sharing the day's events. Austin was true to his word about getting to know her. He asked questions about her life, her childhood, her thoughts on everything from politics to poetry. He listened when she talked about her students, laughing at funny stories and offering sympathy when she struggled with difficult parents. He never dismissed her concerns or acted like her work was less important than his. In turn, Ophelia learned about him. She discovered he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, making her laugh when she least expected it. She learned he was patient and methodical, never rushing into things without thinking them through. He was good with animals, gentle and firm in equal measure. He sang sometimes while he worked, old trail songs in a surprisingly pleasant baritone. And he read books, borrowing from the small collection her father had kept, which surprised her. Most cowboys she knew had little use for reading. "My mother taught me," he explained when she asked. "She said a man who couldn't read was a man who couldn't think for himself. She made sure I could do both." One evening, about 3 weeks into their marriage, Ophelia came home to find Austin on the roof of the house, replacing damaged shingles. She watched him work from the ground, noting the ease with which he moved, the careful way he checked each board before securing it. When he climbed down, she had lemonade waiting for him. "Thank you," he said, drinking gratefully. "It's hotter than blazes up there." "The roof looks good," Ophelia said. "You've done a lot of work around here. The place looks more like itself again." "It's coming along," Austin agreed. "Your father built good bones. It just needs some care and attention." They sat on the porch steps together, watching Thomas play with the ranch dog in the yard. The boy was doing better, the sharp edges of his grief softening as life found a new normal. "Austin," Ophelia said carefully, "I've been thinking about what you said about finding each other daily. I think I understand what you meant now." He looked at her with interest. "Yeah, marriage isn't a fixed thing, is it? It's not something that just is, unchanging. It's something you have to work at, choose every day. Like teaching. I have to show up every day and try to reach my students. Some days are easier than others, but I have to keep trying." "Is that what you meant about marriage?" Austin smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "That's exactly what I meant. I'm glad you see it too." "I thought marriage would be like drowning," Ophelia admitted. "Like I would stop being Ophelia and become only Mrs. Miller, some extension of you. But it hasn't been like that. You've given me room to breathe, to still be myself. I appreciate that more than I can say." "You don't have to thank me for treating you like a person," Austin said, but his voice was warm. "That should be the baseline, not something special." "Maybe it should be," Ophelia said, "but it's not always. You're different, Austin, different from most men I've known." He ducked his head, looking pleased but embarrassed. "I'm just trying to do right by you. That's all." That night, for the first time, Ophelia found herself thinking about Austin in a different way, not as an obligation or a solution to a problem, but as a man. A good man who made her laugh and listened when she talked and worked hard to build a life with her. She caught herself watching him across the dinner table, noticing the way his hair fell across his forehead, the lines around his eyes when he smiled. It was a dangerous line of thinking, she knew. Feelings complicated things. But maybe, she thought, maybe complicated wasn't always bad. The next Saturday, Austin suggested they go into town together. "There's a dance at the fort," he said. "Nothing fancy, just the usual gathering. Thought it might be nice to go, show folks we're doing all right." Ophelia hesitated. She wasn't much for dancing, and the idea of being on display as the new Mrs. Miller made her nervous. But Austin looked hopeful, and she realized he probably didn't get much chance for socializing, working as hard as he did. "All right," she said. "We can go for a little while." The fort's social hall was packed with people when they arrived that evening. Soldiers and their wives, ranchers and townspeople, all crowding together for music and dancing and the rare chance to celebrate. A small band played enthusiastically, if not perfectly, and couples whirled around the makeshift dance floor. Several people came up to congratulate them on their marriage, though Ophelia could see the curiosity in their eyes. Everyone knew the circumstances of their union. Frontier communities were too small for secrets. But most people seemed genuinely pleased for them, or at least willing to pretend for politeness. Harold Sutton was there, of course, watching from a corner with cold eyes. Ophelia felt his gaze like a physical thing and moved closer to Austin unconsciously. Austin noticed. "Don't let him bother you," he said quietly. "He's got no power over us now." "He still makes my skin crawl," Ophelia admitted. "Want to dance?" Austin asked, clearly trying to distract her. "Fair warning, I'm not very good at it," Ophelia laughed despite herself. "Neither am I. We'll stumble around together." He led her onto the dance floor as the band struck up a waltz. Austin was right. He wasn't particularly graceful, but he was earnest and careful not to step on her feet. They moved somewhat awkwardly at first, finding their rhythm, and then with more confidence. Other couples swirled past them, but Ophelia found herself focused entirely on Austin. He was close enough that she could smell leather and soap and something distinctly him. His hand was warm on her waist, respectful but firm. "This isn't so bad," he said, smiling down at her. "No," Ophelia agreed and realized she meant it. "It's actually kind of nice." They danced several more songs, growing more comfortable with each other. At one point, Austin spun her unexpectedly and she laughed, genuinely delighted. When had she last felt this light, this carefree? She couldn't remember. Later, they stood outside the hall cooling off, drinking punch and watching the stars. The night air was cooler now that fall was approaching, pleasant after the heat of the crowded room. "Thank you for coming," Austin said. "I know socializing isn't really your favorite thing." "It was fun," Ophelia said, surprising herself. "I'm glad we came." Austin looked like he wanted to say something more, but before he could, Harold Sutton appeared from the shadows. He was clearly drunk, his face flushed and his eyes mean. "Well, if it isn't the happy couple," he sneered. "Tell me, Miller, how does it feel to be a kept man, living off your wife's land?" "Walk away, Sutton," Austin said calmly, though Ophelia could feel tension radiating from him. "Must be nice," Sutton continued, stepping closer. "Marry into property like that. Smart move for a drifter." "That's enough," Ophelia said sharply, but Sutton ignored her. "I wonder what your new husband would do if he knew the truth," Sutton said to Ophelia. "That your father was about to sell me that ranch before he died, that we had a deal." "That's a lie," Ophelia said, but doubt flickered in her chest. "Was it? Is it?" Sutton said. "Ask Thomas. He was there when we discussed it. Your father knew he couldn't manage anymore. He was ready to sell." Austin's hand found Ophelia's, squeezing gently. "Even if that were true, it doesn't matter now. The ranch belongs to Ophelia, and she makes her own choices. Now I'm telling you one more time, walk away." Something in Austin's voice must have penetrated Sutton's drunken haze because he backed off, though not without a parting shot. "This isn't over, Miller. You'll find that out soon enough." He stumbled away into the night. Ophelia felt shaken, Sutton's words rattling around in her head. Had her father really been planning to sell? Had she fought so hard to keep something he no longer wanted? "Don't listen to him," Austin said firmly. "He's drunk and bitter and trying to hurt you. Even if your father was considering selling, he didn't. That ranch is yours now, and what you do with it is your choice." "But what if he's right?" Ophelia said. "What if I've forced you into this marriage to save something that wasn't worth saving?" Austin turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "Ophelia, look at me. Do you think I would have married you if I didn't want to? Do you think I'm the kind of man who gets forced into things? I chose this, I chose you, and for what it's worth, I don't regret it for a second." "Really?" Ophelia searched his face for any sign of doubt or resentment. "Really," Austin said softly. "These past few weeks have been some of the best of my life. I like waking up in that house. I like having breakfast with you and Thomas. I like hearing about your day over dinner. I like working on the ranch and knowing we're building something together. So no, I don't feel trapped. I feel lucky." Ophelia felt her throat tighten with emotion. "I feel lucky too," she whispered. "I didn't expect to, but I do." Austin's thumb brushed across her cheek, tender and questioning. "Can I kiss you? A real kiss, not just a peck on the cheek." Ophelia's heart hammered in her chest. This was a threshold. Once crossed, there was no going back to the careful friendship they had built. But looking into Austin's eyes, she found she wanted to cross it. She wanted to know what it would feel like to be kissed by this man who had shown her more respect and kindness than she had thought possible. "Yes," she said. Austin leaned down slowly, giving her time to change her mind. When his lips met hers, it was soft at first, almost hesitant. Then Ophelia leaned into the kiss and Austin responded, one hand sliding into her hair while the other pulled her closer. The kiss deepened, becoming something real and raw and honest. Ophelia felt heat flood through her, desire she hadn't known she was capable of. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Oh," Ophelia said, dazed. "Yeah," Austin agreed, his voice rough. "Oh." They stood in the moonlight, holding each other, and Ophelia felt something fundamental shift inside her. This wasn't just a marriage of convenience anymore. This was real. Her feelings for Austin were real, growing stronger every day. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. "We should probably head home," Austin said eventually, though he didn't sound eager to move. "Probably," Ophelia agreed, but she didn't let go of him. They stood there a moment longer before finally breaking apart and walking to their wagon. The ride home was quiet but not uncomfortable. Ophelia was very aware of Austin beside her, of the warmth of his leg pressed against hers on the narrow seat. Everything felt different now, charged with possibility. When they got home, Thomas was already asleep in his room. Austin walked Ophelia to her bedroom door, then hesitated. "I should let you get some rest," he said. "Austin," Ophelia said, gathering her courage, "you don't have to sleep in that tiny room anymore. You could stay here with me if you want." Austin's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Ophelia said, and found that she was. "We're married. We're building something real together. I want this." Austin cupped her face in his hands, his gaze searching. "I don't want to rush you. We can take our time." "I know," Ophelia said, "and I trust you. But I'm not afraid anymore, Austin. You've shown me that marriage doesn't mean losing myself. It means finding us. Together." The smile that broke across Austin's face was radiant. "Together," he agreed. That night they shared a bed for the first time, and if they were awkward and nervous at first, they were also tender and patient with each other. Austin was gentle, constantly checking that Ophelia was comfortable, that this was what she wanted. And Ophelia found herself responding with a passion that surprised her. This was nothing like the dreadful duty she had imagined marital relations would be. This was intimacy and connection and joy. Afterwards, they lay tangled together in the moonlight streaming through the window. Austin's fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder while Ophelia's head rested on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I never thought I could feel like this," she admitted quietly. "Like what?" Austin asked. "Happy, content, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She propped herself up to look at him. "A month ago I thought my life was ending. Now I feel like it's just beginning." "Mine too," Austin said, pulling her closer. "I meant what I said, Ophelia. I'm lucky to have found you." "We found each other," Ophelia corrected. "That's what you said marriage should be, finding each other daily." "And do you believe that now?" Austin asked. Ophelia considered. "I do. I thought marriage would be like putting on chains, but with you it feels more like growing wings." "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Austin said, kissing her forehead. "We'll keep finding each other every day, that's my promise to you." "And mine to you," Ophelia said. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, and for the first time since her parents died, Ophelia felt truly at peace. The following months were a time of growth and change. Autumn turned the desert landscape gold and brown, bringing cooler temperatures and relief from the summer heat. The ranch prospered under Austin's management. He hired a young man named Javier to help with the daily work, freeing up more of his time. With Ophelia continuing to teach and Austin bringing in steady wages from both ranches, they were able to make payments on their loan and start building real savings. But more than the financial stability, it was their emotional connection that deepened and flourished. Ophelia had never imagined that marriage could be like this, a constant discovery of another person and yourself. Austin challenged her thinking, asked her opinions, and actually listened to her answers. He encouraged her teaching and helped her prepare lessons in the evenings. When she struggled with a difficult student, he offered suggestions without trying to solve the problem for her. In turn, Ophelia learned the rhythms of ranch life and became a true partner in its management. She could handle livestock now, doctor sick animals, mend fences. She kept the books with a precision that impressed Austin, finding ways to cut costs and maximize profits. Together they made decisions about when to sell cattle, what repairs to prioritize, whether to expand their herd. They disagreed sometimes, even argued, but they always talked it through until they found a solution they both could accept. Thomas thrived under Austin's mentorship, learning the skills he would need to run the ranch someday if he chose. But Austin also encouraged the boys' schooling, insisting he get an education before committing to ranching life. "Learn everything you can," Austin told him. "Then decide what you want to do with your life. Don't let circumstances trap you into a path you don't want." It was a philosophy Ophelia appreciated deeply. Austin practiced what he preached, always looking for ways to grow and improve. He bought books on new ranching techniques and actually read them. He experimented with different grasses for pasture. He treated their ranch hands with respect and paid them fairly, which meant they worked harder and stayed longer. One evening in late November, Ophelia came home from school to find Austin building something in the yard. She walked over curiously, shading her eyes against the setting sun. "What is this?" she asked. Austin looked up grinning. "A greenhouse." "Well, the start of one. I figured if we could grow vegetables year-round, we could save money on food and maybe even sell some in town. What do you think?" Ophelia felt warmth spread through her chest. "I think it's brilliant. My mother always wished she could grow more in the winter." "I remembered you mentioning that," Austin said. "Thought it might be a nice tribute to her, keep her garden alive in a way." Ophelia kissed him, not caring that they were in full view of anyone who might pass by. "You're a good man, Austin Miller." "I try," he said, pulling her close. "For you, I try." That winter brought challenges. A cold snap killed several head of cattle, a financial blow they could ill afford. Ophelia got sick with influenza and was bedridden for 2 weeks, unable to teach. Austin nursed her through it with patient care, bringing her soup and tea and sitting with her when fever dreams made her frightened. When she finally recovered, weak but on the mend, she found him asleep in the chair beside her bed, clearly having stayed up all night watching over her. "You should be in bed," she scolded gently, stroking his hair. Austin woke with a start, immediately checking her forehead for fever. "You're cooler. The fever broke." "Yes, and I'm going to be fine, but you're going to get sick if you don't take care of yourself." "I couldn't leave you," Austin said simply. "What if you needed something?" Ophelia felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you," she said, the words coming out before she had consciously decided to say them. But once spoken, she knew they were true. Somewhere in the past months, friendship and respect had deepened into love, real and abiding. Austin's face transformed. "You do." "I do," Ophelia said. "I think I have for a while now. I just didn't want to presume. I know we married for practical reasons." "We married for practical reasons," Austin agreed. But I fell in love with you for 1,000 impractical ones. The way you bite your lip when you're thinking. How you always give Thomas the biggest portion of dinner. Your terrible singing voice when you think nobody's listening. The passionate way you talk about teaching. Your fierce independence and your surprising softness. I love all of it, Ophelia. I love you. When did you know? Ophelia asked. Austin thought for a moment. Remember that night you came home drenched because you got caught in that rainstorm? You were laughing about it, wringing out your hair, talking about how the students thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. You were dripping on the floor and completely joyful. That's when I knew. I thought, this is a woman who finds happiness in small moments. I want to share every moment with her for the rest of my life. That was months ago, Ophelia said, surprised. I know. I've been waiting for the right time to tell you, didn't want to scare you off. You couldn't scare me off, Ophelia said. You're stuck with me now, Cowboy. Best news I've heard all year, Austin said, and kissed her deeply. Spring came early in 1879, bringing renewal and hope. Ophelia discovered she was pregnant in March, a surprise that filled them both with excitement and terror in equal measure. Austin became absurdly protective, trying to prevent her from doing anything strenuous, until Ophelia had to firmly remind him that pregnancy wasn't an illness. Women have been having babies and working ranches since the dawn of time, she told him. I'm not made of glass. I know, Austin said. I just want to keep you safe, both of you. We'll be safe, Ophelia assured him. Together, remember, we'll figure it out together. She continued teaching through the spring term, only stepping down when the summer break came and her belly had grown too large for comfort. The baby was due in late October, and they spent the summer preparing, turning the small storage room into a nursery, acquiring a cradle and baby clothes, reading every book on infant care they could find. Thomas was delighted at the prospect of becoming an uncle, even though Ophelia had to remind him several times that the baby would be his niece or nephew, not his sibling, since she was his sister, not his mother. The technicality confused him but didn't diminish his enthusiasm. One warm evening in September, Ophelia and Austin sat on the porch watching the sunset, her hand resting on her swollen belly while Austin's hand covered hers. "Are you scared?" Ophelia asked. "Terrified," Austin admitted. "What if I'm a terrible father?" "You won't be," Ophelia said confidently. "You're patient and kind and you listen. Those are the most important things." "What if something goes wrong?" Austin said quietly, voicing the fear they had both been avoiding. Childbirth was dangerous on the frontier. Women died, babies died. It was a grim reality everyone knew. "Then we'll face it together," Ophelia said. "But I truly believe everything will be fine. I'm strong, Austin, and I have you." "You have me," Austin agreed. "Always." The baby came on October 15th, 2 weeks earlier than expected. Austin had been in town getting supplies when Ophelia's water broke. Thomas rode like the wind to fetch the midwife while Ophelia tried to breathe through the contractions, remembering everything she had read about staying calm. Austin arrived home to find the house in controlled chaos. The midwife, a capable woman named Mrs. Henderson, had taken charge. She directed Austin to boil water and gather clean linens, giving him tasks to keep him busy and out of the way. Labor was long and difficult. Ophelia labored through the afternoon and into the evening, sweat soaking her hair, pain coming in waves that threatened to drown her. Austin stayed by her side when the midwife allowed it, holding her hand, murmuring encouragement, looking almost as anguished as she felt. "I can't do this," Ophelia gasped at one point, exhausted beyond measure. "You can," Austin said firmly. "You're the strongest person I know. You can do this." Finally, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and red, their son entered the world with a healthy, angry cry. Mrs. Henderson placed the baby on Ophelia's chest, and she looked down at the red, wrinkled little face with overwhelming love. "A boy," she breathed. "Austin, it's a boy." Austin was crying, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his wife and child. "He's perfect. You're perfect." "I can't believe you did that." "We did it," Ophelia corrected. "Together." They named him James Robert Miller after both their fathers. He was a hungry, fussy baby who kept them up at all hours, but neither of them minded. Austin was a natural father, changing diapers without complaint, walking the floor at night when James wouldn't sleep, singing old trail songs in his slightly off-key voice until the baby calmed. Ophelia marveled at how her life had changed in just over a year. She had gone from desperate and trapped to fulfilled and free, from stranger to wife to mother. And through it all, Austin had been beside her, keeping his promise to find her daily, to be her partner rather than her master. One morning when James was about a month old, Ophelia woke to find Austin already up, holding their son at the window and pointing out the sunrise. "See that little man," Austin was saying softly. "That's the desert morning. Best time of day. Everything's fresh and new, full of possibility. Your mama and I are going to show you so much of the world, teach you so many things. But the most important thing we want you to know is that you're loved. So loved. And you can be whoever you want to be. We'll never try to cage you or make you small. That's a promise." Ophelia felt her heart swell almost painfully. This was her family. This strange, unexpected, precious family they had built from necessity and grown into love. Austin turned and saw her watching. "Morning. Did we wake you?" "No," Ophelia said. "I was just enjoying the view." Austin came and sat on the edge of the bed, carefully transferring James to her arms. The baby rooted around, looking for breakfast, and Ophelia adjusted her nightgown to nurse him. "I was thinking," Austin said, watching them with soft eyes, "about what you said a long time ago about wanting to see the ocean someday." "That was just a dream," Ophelia said. "Nothing practical." "Maybe not right now," Austin agreed. "But in a few years, when James is bigger and the ranch is more stable, we could do it. Take a trip west to California. See the Pacific. Would you like that?" Ophelia looked at him in wonder. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything you tell me," Austin said. "Your dreams matter, Ophelia. Just because we have a child now doesn't mean you stop being a person with hopes and goals. We'll make it work." "We always do." "How did I get so lucky?" Ophelia asked. Austin laughed. "I think that's my line. You're the one who gave me a family, a home, a purpose. Before you, I was just drifting. Now I'm anchored, but in the best way. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Ophelia said. "We anchor each other, but we also give each other room to float. That's the balance, isn't it?" "That's the balance," Austin agreed. Over the following years, their family continued to grow and thrive. Ophelia returned to teaching when James was a year old, with Austin and a young woman from town sharing childcare duties. The ranch prospered as cattle prices rose, and their management proved sound. They were able to pay off their loan to the Tucson Bank ahead of schedule, a milestone they celebrated with a special dinner. In 1881, Ophelia gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Lily Me. She was easier than James had been, a calm baby who slept through the night almost immediately. James, now too, was fascinated by his little sister, insisting on helping with everything from diaper changes to feeding times. Thomas, now 19, had grown into a capable young man. He chose to stay on the ranch rather than pursuing other opportunities, claiming nowhere else could compete with home. Austin had made him a full partner in the ranch operations, and the younger man had proven himself worthy of the trust. "He's like a brother to me," Austin told Ophelia. "I want him to know this place is as much his as ours." In 1883, they finally made the trip to California that Austin had promised. They traveled by train, a luxury they could now afford, with 5-year-old James and 3-year-old Lily wide-eyed at everything they saw. The ocean, when they finally reached it, was everything Ophelia had dreamed and more. She stood on the beach with Austin's arm around her, watching their children play in the waves, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. "Thank you," she said to Austin. "For what?" "For keeping your promises. For showing me that marriage didn't mean losing myself. For being the kind of man who sees dreams and helps make them real." Austin pulled her closer. "You did the same for me, you know. I had no idea what kind of life was possible until I met you. You expanded my whole world." They stood together watching the sun set over the Pacific, painting the sky in colors that didn't seem real. Their children's laughter mingled with the sound of waves, and Ophelia thought about that day in the cemetery when a stranger had offered her a way out of desperation. She couldn't have imagined then where that choice would lead, the love and partnership they would build. "What are you thinking?" Austin asked. "That I would make the same choice 100 times over," Ophelia said. "Marrying you was the best decision I ever made, even though you didn't know me." Austin teased gently. "Especially because I didn't know you," Ophelia said. "It meant we got to discover each other slowly, build something real from the ground up. There was no pretense, no false expectations, just two people figuring out how to make a life together." "Finding each other daily," Austin said. "Finding each other daily," Ophelia agreed. They returned to Arizona refreshed and full of new energy for the ranch. The 1880s proved to be good years for them. The territory was slowly becoming more settled, with better roads and rail connections making commerce easier. Their ranch became known for quality cattle and fair dealing. Austin's reputation as an honest man and skilled rancher spread, and he was occasionally called upon to settle disputes or offer advice to newer ranchers. Ophelia continued teaching for several more years before stepping down to focus on the ranch and their growing family. In 1885, she gave birth to twin boys, Samuel and Joseph, who kept the entire household in cheerful chaos. In 1887, another daughter arrived whom they named Rose. Their house was full of noise and life and love, but it wasn't always easy. There were hard years when drought struck and cattle died. Years when Ophelia got sick and Austin had to manage everything alone. Years when they argued about money or child rearing or the future of the ranch. But through all of it, they kept their fundamental promise to each other: to show up every day, to listen, to respect each other's autonomy while building something together. On their 10th wedding anniversary in September of 1888, Austin gave Ophelia a leather-bound journal. "I thought you might want to write down some of our story," he said, "for the children so they know how we started." Ophelia ran her fingers over the smooth leather. "What should I write?" "The truth," Austin said. "That marriage scared you because you thought it meant disappearing. And how we learned together that it could mean something different, that it could mean finding each other every single day and choosing to build a partnership of equals." "Is that what we have?" Ophelia asked, though she knew the answer. "A partnership of equals, I think so," Austin said. "We both bring different strengths and skills. We both have our own identities and dreams. But we've woven our lives together in a way that makes both of us stronger. That's what I believe marriage should be." "Me too," Ophelia said. She kissed him, long and sweet, this man who had kept every promise he ever made to her. "Thank you for teaching me that." "We taught each other," Austin corrected. "That's the whole point." That evening, after the children were in bed, Ophelia sat at her desk and opened the journal. She thought about what to write, how to capture the essence of their unlikely love story. Finally, she put pen to paper. "In September of 1878, I thought my life was ending," she wrote. "I was 21 years old, newly orphaned and facing a future that terrified me. Marriage seemed like a trap, a prison that would erase everything I was and turn me into nothing more than someone's wife. Then, I met Austin Miller, and he taught me that marriage didn't have to mean losing myself. It could mean finding each other daily, through all the small choices and conversations and compromises that build a life. He showed me that two people could be bound together and still be free, could be partners without one dominating the other. Our love didn't begin with passion or romance. It began with respect and grew into something deeper and truer than I knew was possible. If I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be this: trust the cowboy with the kind eyes who promises you a partnership. He'll keep his word, and together you'll build something beautiful." Ophelia set down her pen and looked out the window at the ranch spread before her in the moonlight. Somewhere in the barn, Austin was checking on a pregnant mare. She could see the glow of his lantern moving in the darkness. Soon he would come back to the house to her, and they would go to bed together as they had every night for 10 years. In the morning they would wake and begin the process again, finding each other in the small rituals of coffee and conversation, in shared work and shared dreams. It wasn't the life she had imagined for herself all those years ago. It was so much better. Austin came in a while later, smelling of hay and horses. He found her at the desk and read over her shoulder, his arms coming around her in a familiar embrace. "That's a good start," he said. "But you left out the part where I was terrified out of my mind when I proposed to you," Ophelia laughed. "Were you really?" "Absolutely. I thought you'd say no, that you'd think I was crazy, but I had to try. There was something about you even then. A strength and a spirit that I recognized somehow, like I'd been looking for you without knowing it." "I'm glad you tried," Ophelia said, covering his hands with hers. "I'm glad you saw something worth fighting for when I couldn't see it myself." "I saw you," Austin said simply. "That's all. Just you." They stood together in the quiet house, their children sleeping peacefully, their ranch secure around them. Outside, the desert night was cool and star-filled, infinite in its possibilities. And inside, two people who had started as strangers held each other close, grateful for every choice that had led them here. The years continued to unfold in their pattern of work and joy, challenge and growth. The children grew up strong and healthy, each developing their own personality and dreams. James showed an interest in law and eventually went to study in Tucson. Lily became a teacher like her mother, taking over the Fort Bowie schoolhouse when Ophelia finally retired. The twins, Samuel and Joseph, were natural ranchers who loved the land and cattle as much as their father did. Young Rose, artistic and dreamy, filled the house with paintings and poetry. Austin and Ophelia watched their children become adults with pride and just a touch of melancholy. The house that had once been so full grew quieter as the children left to make their own ways. But Austin and Ophelia found they didn't mind. It gave them time to rediscover each other, to remember who they had been before children and responsibilities had filled every moment. They traveled more, taking trips to San Francisco and Denver, once even going as far as Chicago. They saw plays and museums, ate in restaurants and stayed in hotels. But they always came home to the ranch, to the desert landscape they both loved. In 1895, 17 years after their wedding, they celebrated James's marriage to a bright young woman named Catherine. Standing in the church watching their son exchange vows, Ophelia felt Austin's hand slip into hers. Thinking about our wedding, he murmured. Yes, Ophelia admitted. How different this is, how certain they are. We were certain too, Austin said. Just about different things. We were certain we'd figure it out, and we did. We did, Ophelia agreed. At the reception afterwards, several people asked them for marriage advice, given their long and apparently happy union. Austin and Ophelia looked at each other, communicating in the wordless way of long married couples. Find each other daily, Ophelia said. Don't assume you know everything about your partner just because you've been together a while. Keep being curious. Keep asking questions. And remember your partners, Austin added. Not one person following the other's lead, but two people walking side by side. Sometimes one of you will need to lean on the other. That's fine. Just make sure it goes both ways. Most importantly, Ophelia said, don't lose yourself in the marriage. Stay who you are, keep your own interests and dreams. A good marriage makes space for both people to grow, not just one. We learned that the hard way, Austin said, smiling at his wife. Or almost the hard way. We were lucky enough to figure it out early. As the evening wore on and they danced together to music played by a small band, Ophelia reflected on how far they had come. She was 40 years old now, her hair starting to show threads of silver. Austin was 44, with crow's feet around his eyes and calluses that never went away. They were middle-aged, settled, comfortable in their lives, and yet she still felt a thrill when he smiled at her a certain way. Still felt chosen and cherished. Still felt like herself, Ophelia, not just Austin's wife or anyone's mother. He had kept his promise in every way that mattered. What are you thinking? Austin asked, swaying with her to the music. That I still love you, Ophelia said. That I love you more now than I did even in the beginning, because now I know every part of you. Your strengths and weaknesses, your habits and quirks. I know you completely and I love all of it. The feeling is entirely mutual, Austin said. You're still the most fascinating person I know, Ophelia Miller. After all these years, you still surprise me. Good, Ophelia said. Let's make sure it stays that way. They danced until late into the evening, celebrating their son's beginning while honoring their own journey. When they finally went home to the ranch that night, driving the familiar road under a canopy of stars, Ophelia felt profoundly at peace. You ever wonder what your life would have been like if we hadn't met? She asked Austin. Sometimes, he admitted, but never for long. This is the life I'm supposed to have. I'm sure of it. You're the person I'm supposed to be with. Everything else is just speculation. Even though it started so strangely, even though we barely knew each other, especially because of that, Austin said. We got to create our own story, make our own rules. We didn't have to follow anyone else's expectations of what marriage should be. We figured it out ourselves together. Finding each other daily, Ophelia said softly. Finding each other daily, Austin echoed. The ranch house appeared in the distance, solid and welcoming, lit by moonlight. It had been expanded over the years, grown along with their family. The greenhouse Austin had built still stood, producing vegetables year-round. The barn had been rebuilt twice now, each time stronger than before. The land supported a healthy herd of cattle and horses. It was proof of what two people could accomplish when they worked together, when they respected each other's contributions and supported each other's dreams. As they prepared for bed that night, moving through the comfortable rhythms of a long marriage, Ophelia caught sight of herself in the mirror. She saw not just herself but both of them, reflected together. Austin behind her, unbuttoning his shirt. Her own face, older but somehow more herself than she had been at 21. They had grown into each other, shaped by shared experiences while remaining fundamentally individual. I never lost myself, she said aloud. the realization still powerful after all these years. I was so afraid marriage would erase me, but it didn't. I'm still me, even more me than I was before. Austin came up behind her, meeting her eyes in the mirror. Because we made space for you to be you. That was always the plan. It was a good plan, Ophelia said, leaning back against him. It was, Austin agreed. And it's not over yet. We still have a lot of living to do, Ophelia Miller. A lot of finding each other ahead of us. I'm looking forward to it, Ophelia said, and meant it with her whole heart. The years that followed brought their share of joys and sorrows. They lost Thomas in 1898, killed in a riding accident that devastated them all. They gained 7 grandchildren in quick succession as their children married and started families. Austin's hair went completely gray, and Ophelia developed arthritis in her hands that made fine work difficult. But they adapted, as they always had, supporting each other through grief and celebrating new life with equal intensity. In 1903, they celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary with a large gathering at the ranch. All their children came, along with grandchildren and friends accumulated over decades of life in Arizona territory. There were speeches and toasts, music and dancing, laughter and tears. At one point, Lily pulled Ophelia aside. "Mama, how did you and Papa make it work, really? What's the secret?" Ophelia thought about the question seriously. "There's no single secret," she said finally. "It's 100 small things. We talked to each other, really talked. We listened. We respected each other's independence while building interdependence. Your father never tried to control me or make me small, and I never expected him to be perfect or to solve all my problems. We were partners, equals, 2 whole people who chose to build a life together rather than one person absorbing the other." "That sounds hard," Lily said. "Sometimes it was," Ophelia admitted. "But it was always worth it. And the foundation we built early, that commitment to finding each other daily rather than assuming we knew everything, that carried us through the difficult times." Later, when the party had wound down and most guests had left, Ophelia and Austin sat on the porch together watching the sun set, as they had done countless times over the years. They were older now, slower, but still fundamentally themselves. 25 years, Austin said wonderingly. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday you were standing in that cemetery looking like the weight of the world was on your shoulders." "Sometimes it does," Ophelia agreed. "And sometimes it feels like we've lived several lifetimes together. Both things can be true." "Any regrets?" Austin asked. "None," Ophelia said firmly. "Not a single one." "None," Austin echoed. "Even the hard parts were worth it because we went through them together. I meant my vows, Ophelia. For better or worse, for richer or poorer, all of it. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat." "So would I," Ophelia said. She took his hand, their fingers interlacing with the ease of long practice. "Thank you for teaching me what marriage could be. Thank you for being my partner, my friend, my love." "Thank you for trusting me," Austin said. "For taking a chance on a strange cowboy who made you an unexpected offer. For building this life with me. I'm the luckiest man alive, Ophelia. I've always known that." They sat in comfortable silence as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. From inside the house came the sounds of their family, their children and grandchildren, the legacy of their love. It was everything Ophelia had never dared to dream she could have. "I used to think marriage meant losing yourself," she said quietly. "Becoming nothing but someone's wife, disappearing into their shadow. I was terrified of it." "And now?" Austin asked. "Now I know the truth," Ophelia said. "Marriage can be that if you let it. But it doesn't have to be. With the right person, it can mean the opposite. It can mean finding yourself more fully, discovering strengths you didn't know you had. It can mean being supported and challenged and loved for exactly who you are." not despite your independence, but because of it. We were lucky, Austin said. We figured out early what a lot of people never learn. That marriage is something you create together, not something that just happens to you, that it requires daily effort and choice. Finding each other daily, Ophelia said, the phrase that had become their touchstone over the years. Finding each other daily, Austin agreed. And I still find new things to love about you even now. That's the miracle of it. After 25 years, you still surprise me. Good, Ophelia said, leaning her head on his shoulder. Let's keep it that way for another 25 years. Deal, Austin said, kissing the top of her head. They sat together as the desert night deepened around them, two people who had started as strangers and become everything to each other. The ranch spread around them, solid and prosperous, built by their shared labor and vision. Their family was inside, healthy and thriving. They had built something remarkable from unpromising beginnings, had turned necessity into genuine love, and through it all, they had kept their promises. To find each other daily, to be partners rather than one person dominating the other, to make space for both of them to remain themselves while building something larger together. It was simple in concept but profound in practice, this approach to marriage they had pioneered together. As the years continued to pass, they held fast to these principles. When Austin developed a bad back that made ranch work harder, Ophelia hired help without him asking, respecting his pride while ensuring the work got done. When Ophelia wanted to write a book about frontier education, Austin encouraged her and gave her time and space to do it, even taking on more household duties so she could focus. When they disagreed about selling part of the ranch to developers, they talked it through for weeks until they reached a compromise both could accept. They grew old together, their bodies slowing even as their minds stayed sharp. They argued sometimes and annoyed each other occasionally because they were human and flawed. But underneath, everything was a bedrock of respect and love that time only strengthened. In 1908, on their 30th anniversary, they sat together on the same porch that had been witness to so many conversations and realizations over the decades. Austin was 67 now, Ophelia 63. They had buried friends and celebrated grandchildren's births. They had survived droughts and economic panics, personal illnesses and the general trials of aging, and they were still finding each other, still choosing this partnership every single day. If you could go back, Austin asked, knowing everything you know now, would you still marry me? Even though you were so scared, even though we were strangers, Ophelia looked at him, at the face she knew better than her own, weathered by time but still dear. Yes, she said without hesitation. 1,000 times yes, because you kept your word, Austin. You showed me that marriage didn't have to mean losing myself. You proved that two people could build a life together without one disappearing into the other's shadow. You were my partner in every sense of the word. How could I regret that? I was so nervous that day, Austin admitted. When I proposed in the cemetery, I had no idea if you'd say yes or if I was being foolish. But I looked at you and saw someone fighting to stay afloat, fighting to keep her identity in the face of pressure to conform. I wanted to help. And maybe, selfishly, I wanted to build a life with someone who understood that struggle. It wasn't selfish, Ophelia said. It was human. We helped each other, Austin. That's what partnership means. You gave me a way out of a trap, and I gave you a family and a home. We both won. We both won, Austin agreed. He raised his glass of lemonade. To 30 years of finding each other. To 30 years, Ophelia echoed, clinking her glass against his. And to however many more we're blessed with. They drank together as the sun set in a spectacular display of orange and pink and gold, painting the desert in colors that never got old no matter how many times they witnessed them. The ranch was quiet around them now, most of the children grown and gone to their own lives. But it was a peaceful quiet, the satisfaction of work well done and a life well lived. That evening, after dinner, Ophelia returned to the journal Austin had given her years ago. She had filled it with stories of their life together, memories and reflections on what they had learned. Now she added a new entry. 30 years ago, she wrote, I married a stranger to save my family's ranch. I was terrified that marriage would mean losing myself, becoming nothing but someone's wife. Austin promised me it didn't have to be that way. He said marriage could mean finding each other daily, being partners rather than one person dominating the other. I didn't fully believe him then, but I took a chance. That chance changed my life. Austin kept every promise he ever made to me. He made space for me to be myself, to grow and change and pursue my own interests. He listened when I talked and respected my opinions even when he disagreed. He treated me as an equal in every way that mattered, and I tried to do the same for him, to support his dreams while maintaining my own. Together we built something neither of us could have created alone. A family, a ranch, a love story that defied the odds. I am 63 years old now, and I am still myself. I am Ophelia, not just Austin's wife or anyone's mother. I have my own thoughts and dreams and identity. But I am also part of something larger, woven into a partnership that makes me stronger rather than smaller. This is what marriage should be. What it can be when two people commit to finding each other every single day, when they choose partnership over domination, when they make space for both individuals to flourish while building something together. I thought marriage would mean drowning. Instead, it taught me how to fly. Ophelia set down her pen and closed the journal, satisfied. This was her legacy. These words about love and partnership and the daily choice to keep showing up for each other. She hoped her children and grandchildren would read them someday, would understand that marriage could be many things, but at its best, it was a collaboration between equals. Austin came in from checking the horses, his nightly ritual even at his age. He found her at the desk and smiled, recognizing what she had been doing. Adding to the story, he asked. Finishing it, Ophelia said. Or at least this chapter. The story continues as long as we do. And then our children will tell their own stories, Austin said. About what they learned from watching us. We'll live on through them, through the example we set. I hope it was a good example, Ophelia said. I think it was, Austin said confidently. We showed them that marriage could be a partnership. That two people could maintain their individual identities while building a shared life. That love wasn't just passion or romance, though we had plenty of both. It was showing up every day, being present, staying curious about each other. Those are lessons worth passing on. They prepared for bed together, moving through routines perfected over 3 decades. Austin helped Ophelia with buttons her arthritic fingers struggled with. She reminded him to take his medicine for his back. They were old, their bodies wearing out slowly but surely. But their love was as strong as ever, tempered and tested by time. In bed, wrapped in each other's arms, Ophelia said quietly, I still choose you. Every day I still choose you. And I choose you, Austin replied. Until my last breath I choose you. They fell asleep that way, as they had done for 30 years, two people who had started as strangers and become each other's everything. Two people who had learned that marriage didn't mean losing yourself, but rather finding yourself more fully through the daily choice to be partners, equals, and most of all, steadfast in their commitment to each other. The desert night was cool and peaceful around their ranch. Inside the house, Ophelia and Austin Miller slept soundly, their lives a testament to what love could be when built on respect, partnership, and the daily choice to keep finding each other. They had taken a desperate situation and transformed it into something beautiful. They had proven that marriage at its best was not about one person disappearing, but about two people continuously discovering each other and themselves. And in the morning, they would wake and begin the process again, finding each other in the small rituals of coffee and conversation, in shared work and shared dreams. Because that was what they did. That was what they had always done. That was the promise they had made and kept, through 30 years of joys and sorrows, triumphs and trials. They found each other daily, and in doing so, they found themselves. It was the best love story either of them could have imagined, built not on fairy tale romance, but on something more enduring: mutual respect, genuine partnership, and the steadfast commitment to honor both the individual and the union. They had learned that marriage didn't mean losing yourself. It meant finding each other every single day and choosing to build a life together while remaining wholly, completely yourselves. And that made all the difference.